Okay, another day, another British ice hockey team whose future is uncertain. And this time it's the MK Thunder, the second team of Milton Keynes. Obviously, the Milton Keynes Lightning joined the Elite League with Guildford beginning of last season. They were a former EPIHL side, which I will return to that in a second. And it's had some unintended consequences. Last year, MK Thunder were decent. They were competitive. They weren't the best NIHL side carryover from the previous years, but they were decent. They got some players on two-way contracts with the Elite League sides. Not a problem. This year they've run out of money. They're the second team in the space of a couple of months to basically go, yeah, we can't afford to sustain this anymore. It's not as if the NIHL has changed too much. It just 7 new teams joined the structure. The structure got restructured. You've got the Bracknell Bees, Telford Tigers, Hull Pirates, who could be going to the Elite League next year, so that could throw the North structure into complete chaos. Basingstoke Bison, Peterborough Phantoms, Swindon Wildcats, Guildford Flame. Well, Guildford Flames are gone, but you get what I'm getting at here. There's a lot of teams that were in the former EPIHL that dropped down because they only had a handful of teams left to compete. Sheffield Steel Dogs as well. So there were 7 teams left over from the EPIHL out of the starting season of 10 the year before. There are calls to have a return to a second tier separate from the National League for those teams that can afford it. So the teams I've just mentioned, there's sort of calls there for them to get their own league again and be sort of a holding pattern below the Elite League. And when they get successful, the Elite League dips in and expands. Because I can see Peterborough and Bracknell definitely going to the Elite League at some point in the next couple of years. If Hull are going to do it, hey, these teams have also got rinks or arenas big enough. They have stabilised funding now. They're very successful teams historically. They're looking good this season. I think they could also go up. The problem is Milton Keynes Thunder are still 10 grand short of their budget. And their next game, or their last game of this year, is on the 16th of December. That could be their last game ever. They might not be able to even ice a team for next year. Invicta have managed to survive. There was a 17 grand shortfall a few days ago. Clubs have dipped into their own budgets, their own budget surplus from all their extra ticket sales, and have given money. This is unacceptable. The Elite League, I don't think, has fully realised the consequences of expanding the league so rapidly and not giving something back. This is a problem. This is the second team to revert to crowdfunding. They've launched a crowdfunding campaign to survive. Invicta did it in 48 hours. We're in fact quicker than that. And we're playing Invicta tomorrow as Bracknell Bees. If Milton Keynes go out of business, that could throw the NIHL Division 1 South into chaos because every result that they have played in win, loss or draw is now void. And that will screw up the league positions for the teams already. So if you've beaten MK Thunder and they can't ice a team post Christmas, firstly, it screws the fixture list here, screws that, where teams have booked ice time. They've actually said, look, we've put this fixture in the calendar, and if they rent their rink and they're not owned by the same owners that own the rink, they rent the rink, it screws up the ice time rental, which will actually have a financial knock-on for the rest of the league, which it did with the EPIHL at the end. They're not post-Christmas, we don't know. They need £10,000 in 9 days. Now, Invicta got £5,000 in a day and a half. So I do believe it is doable. I do believe people will give. There's enough hockey fans out there in the UK that will give. But the fact that yet another team is having to resort to crowdfunding is not right. That says to me that the system and the league structures are broken. And fans will call for a return of a second tier separate from the National League, because that's two teams now in the space of a month and a half that have gone down this route of we've run out of money, we're crowdfunding to survive, and that is unacceptable. With the growth of the Elite League and the growth of the sport, with Liam Kirk getting drafted, the Great Britain national side doing so well, this is completely unacceptable that we are still in the 2018 semi-professional, professional ice hockey teams having to crowdfund to survive. We've seen the Edinburgh Capitals go out of business. Basingstoke Bison may not have a rink next year. We don't know what's happening with the Hull Pirates, if they're staying in the national structure or if they're going up to the Elite League level structure, the EIHL. If they do that, that's going to screw the northern divisions up. And there are calls for a return of the EPIHL. So this is serious, and this needs to be resolved. There needs to be funding worked out, and they need to look at the league structure and go, right, what teams can afford what. And if we have to go back to a second tier British National League or EPIHL structure as the second tier, so be it. If that is the way that these hockey teams can survive and continue to contribute to their communities and get young people involved and grow the player base, so be it. But the Elite League has to take some responsibility in what happens in the leagues below. I know none of these teams in the National Ice Hockey League are actually pure affiliates of the Elite League. That could be a resolution. Enough National Ice Hockey League players are on two-way contracts with elite league clubs. That could be a way to solve it, is to make affiliates. But for some reason, the elite league doesn't want to go down that route. But if these teams fail, that actually weakens the player base and makes the elite league less sustainable with the amount of foreign players that will be required to fill the playing gap where the English players or British players are not available. So the elite league needs to take this seriously, because without the player base at the lower levels, in the Division 1 South, Division 1 North, the Division 2 South, the Division 2 North, without the NIHL and the Scottish Hockey League being the lower levels of the game in the UK, without those leagues, the Elite League will struggle to sustain itself. With all the positive growth that we've had, it will struggle to sustain itself. And I'm not sure the Elite League fully comprehended the risks of taking Milton Keynes Lightning, who've proven to be, take out the Edinburgh Capitals, the weakest team in the Elite League. And they have had issues icing a team at points this season and had their own money worries as well. Guildford are doing well. Milton Keynes not so much. They haven't fully comprehended what has happened here and the unintended consequences of taking the main team out of Milton Keynes from the second tier and the effect it's had on the Thunder. And it's been a negative effect. Bear in mind, Milton Keynes were originally the Solihull Barons first time round in the old Super League, Elite, British National League days. It was originally the Solihull Barons. They relocated down the M40. There are some unintended consequences with the growth of the game. It's not being evenly distributed, the growth and the funds. And the more of these teams getting into financial difficulty and risk collapsing, the worse it actually makes for the game going forward. We need a stable base, and without a stable base, the sport cannot grow in the UK. But there we go. Actually, this is by subscriber request. I've done a little nosing into it. It is very serious. We need to save Milton Keynes Thunder, because it could seriously cause chaos. Same with Invicta. We saved them, but the fact we're resorting to crowdfunding the second time this season and we're not even out of December yet, it's just unacceptable that we've reached this point. It's a shambles, utter shambles. So the Division 1 South is going to be chaos next year. There might only be 6 teams in it, and that is unsustainable. And if Hull Pirates do go to the Elite League in 2019, that's going to lead to a restructuring. I'm one of those fans who would want a return of the EPIHL because it worked. It did work. A couple of teams did have financial difficulties, but in the most part, it worked. And it was a good stepping stone between the National and the Elite League for players. And we're seeing this not working. The league structure isn't working. The finance side of it's not working. And the Elite League needs to take some responsibility and look at the issues in British ice hockey. They're the best league in this country. They need to look at what's happening in the leagues below, because that's where they get all their British players from. That's where the British players get developed. Pick up the game. There we go. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry to bring this bad news. Please like and subscribe. Place your comments below. I'll have some more videos for you soon.